everybody, this is John with At the Eyepiece, and I figured I would do a little workflow here of my setup, and in particular the Mallincam Jr Pro with the Miloslick software. Now there's a couple of things that are specific to my setup that you're seeing here on the screen. I'll just briefly cover them. Outside at the scope, connected serially to the serial port, COM port, is the Next Remote software. That's how I am controlling the scope. I'm using a remote desktop here on the Mac to get to that system out there. In addition, going through the additional virtual COM port that the Next Remote permits, I'm using PHT guiding through this particular setup as well. So that's a brief explanation here of this. Now, because I'm using a Mac, I absolutely love this program here. This is called CamTwist. This permits me to go ahead and broadcast the desktop or region rather to Night Skies Network or wherever I'd like to. But it also has these wonderful deep sky object enhancement features that you can get free offline or online rather, and really offers some improvements to the views. Frankly, without really this software, I really wouldn't be very satisfied at all. I think with the images directly from the Mallincam itself, that's just opinion, but I think you'll get to see some of the images here as we go through. So let's assume right now that you have the basic connections. You have your Mallincam plugged into power. You have the, in my case, the RCA cable going in, composite cable going in, and I guess it's RCA, going into your capture device, which in my case is a DCB100, a Dazzle, and you have it, the Mallincam, which is the PC version that I'm using, which using the Miloslick software, you will see right down here, connected. So I'm definitely connected to the Mallincam device. A couple things. So I'm using a LCD monitor, dropping these horizontal to 0, vertical to 1, just as a recommendation from a few other users out there. Go ahead, up it to, of course, hyper mode. Usually go ahead and turn my amplifier on up to 3. Keep this going. Now you'll notice this counter here. This is counting down from 3 minutes. I'm not really sure, to be honest with you, what it will hurt if you don't do it, but you do have the option of canceling the wait period there and just going ahead and doing an immediate integration. I'm not sure what that exactly does with the system. I've seen other people do it, so that's just sometimes I do it. But for the purpose of this 5-minute window here that we have, I'll just leave it as is. So let's do a 60-second exposure. Just sliding this over to the right. Oh, I will describe here too, the auto balance here for your white balance is also what I keep on as far as recommended settings. There's no cooling, by the way, on the Junior Pro, so that's not applicable down there. As we are waiting a little bit longer here, you click on the next option. This is your digitizer settings, where you can set some of the smoothness, your white balance, your sharpness, etc. We'll review that here when the image comes up. This is, of course, your stacking. This is on-screen stacking. It makes a slight improvement. I mean, I haven't really seen something, excuse me, jump out as far as the improvements, but it does make an improvement. This is your hot pixel removal. I'll go ahead and cover that in a separate screencast, but here we have our image here. This is our histogram. What we usually want to do with that is we usually want to tweak it down to where you're not cutting off a whole lot of the dark area, and of course you don't want to brighten up the bright area up too much at that. And last but not least is your video overlay. You can enable your camera information, your compact and your live settings right here. Convenient, sit right there up on there. Okay, so here's our picking up where we had left off. Let's go ahead to a target. Let's go ahead and see where we are with M91. I hit the enter here on the next remote. We should be going to a galaxy here momentarily. We are looping the exposure here, so we're going to see where we are at with that particular object. I think we were focusing on before maybe M100, but for this one we'll go ahead to M91. Now what I usually like to do is drop the exposure down a little bit just so that I can get the object centered up. Now you notice it's really dark. Well, we got to adjust our histogram so that we can see some of the objects there coming up on the screen. Now there's not really much there hinted. Let me up the exposure just a little bit. I just want to see where the galaxy is going to be. I think it's going to be right about here, and I might have to drop that down just a bit. 12, 13, there's 14 seconds. Yep. Okay, so here's our galaxy right here. So let's just click it a couple times on my keyboard. That will go ahead and drop down the image to the galaxy. Hopefully it'll be a little bit lower and not completely out of frame, but it should be pretty good. And we will go from there on doing some tweaks here. So I'm going to pick a star here in PhD, and we're going to go ahead and guide on that, and I'm pretty much going to leave that as is. Go back to our Mallincam software, Miloslick. We'll wait for this integration to finish. Once we verify that it's centered up, which I'm thinking it will be. Yep, there it is. We'll go ahead and crank this up. Let's do a 60-second exposure and see what we got with 60 seconds with AGC, the amplification gain here on 3, which is usually what I leave it at. So we'll let that count down. Again, it's pretty nice to leave the counter down, especially when you're broadcasting online. Gives people the opportunity to kind of anticipate the next refresh on the screen. While we're waiting on that, I'm going to go ahead and bring up the preview screen on the CamTwist. Now, notice here with the CamTwist is, let me move that out of the way here. There we go. I got to adjust a little bit of the capture screen. Yeah, there we go. So shrink that up just a bit for CamTwist. And this just denotes the area that I'm capturing for putting it online. Okay, so here is our galaxy right here. I believe this is M91. Yeah, M91. Okay, so let's go over a couple things here in this particular video. First thing, what I usually do is obviously start making the adjustments to the histogram. So we slide that down, not to trim off too much of the black background, but enough to where it darkens it. I don't really crank this up too much. Looks like we can do it a little bit here. Maybe tone it down just a little bit more. Saturation I usually push down, in particular for galaxies. Just not a whole lot of color for galaxies generally. Our sharpness I usually get up there a little bit there, and our smoothness I usually like to go ahead and put that up there too at about 32 or so % there. And that's basically where I personally leave it. Now you can go ahead and start your frame stacking. This is frame stacking it live there, and basically through the software here, that's it. Now you'll notice these hot pixels. I'm going to show you some nifty tricks here with the hot pixels here on the last minute. What I'd learned from some great people on the Night Skies Network is to crank it up to about 90 here. Auto. There's too many. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to drop it down by about 5. We're going to do another auto. Too many still. So keep dropping it down until it's able to start to pick up a few here and there. Quite a learning curve, really and truly, when you're talking about video. There's a learning curve to everything, but you know, video has a lot of these on-the-fly settings that you just need to tweak and practice with. It's nothing that is going to work 100% for you that is working 100% for me, etc. So you're just really going to have to get some trial and error. A histogram is very, very easy, pretty straightforward to use. You don't want to crop too much of the background or the black. You just want to get it to where it's nice and dark. at least the background is somewhat for you, and brighten it up enough to where you can see the object. You have a pretty decent range there. Now they are creating, hopefully in the next version of Miloslick, a mid-range slider here, which should even help even more. So that's going to be a big plus. Again, kind of went over the hot pixel removals. You notice, and I think this, you notice here on the, well, you can even see it on the Miloslick. A lot of these blue blue blobs for the hot pixels. You know, I find most of the time that I almost just rather have the hot pixels there rather than trying to remove them. I might remove some really offending ones with the manual tool, but for the most part I really don't do the hot pixel removal, at least not that aggressively. And for the frame stacking, you know, once this is enabled, this is supposed to smooth out the background. To me it seems very subtle, but at least it does make a little bit of a change from what I've heard. In real world, it just seems kind of subtle to me, so I'm not sure exactly what the deal is with that, but I'm sure it's worthwhile to do. And of course, all of these other settings here for your specific digitizer, again, you want to go ahead and play with. You see how the saturation, you can go really wild there with the saturation. I usually crank that down, keep it below 25. You don't want to go too crazy with the sharpen either. I usually try to keep that at a lower level. Smoothness, that really just depends on, again, the particular object. And I really don't mess with too much the brightness or the contrast and any of those other settings too much on the fly. I usually leave them pretty much as is. And that's it. Once you are ready to go and get going and broadcasting, you'll be all set. Alright, definitely the biggest help is these noise masks here with CamTwist. And this here, the noise mask, mask blur, amount, mask EV, and mask power. Let's start with the blur option. And as you can see, it gets grainy. The more you blur it, the smoother basically it's trying to turn it into. The mask EV, that's just really basically how dark it's going to get. So you can make some decent changes with it here and there to really bring out as much detail as you need in your object. And again, this is all trial and error. This is nothing set really in stone. But once you get something that you're satisfied with, you leave it there. You do have another sharpen feature. I don't use that much. Obviously, you can tell it really just kind of destroys the image, but on sometimes I do, so I like to leave it there but unchecked. So let's see what the image looks like without doing any of these features. So you can see the image on the right compared to our image on the left. Let's apply our mask. Let's apply our noise mask, our noise reddish background, and our deep sky enhancement. That's really all there is to it. Now, to me, if this was, if we had some decent transparency tonight, this would really be showcasing this particular galaxy, I think, much better than what it is. But it's still doing a pretty good job, in my opinion.